Do not wait for things to come your way. Things have never come my way. I had to go for everything that I wanted. Don't wait for things. Don't wait for a miracle. You have to go and get it.
Welcome to another season of I Taught English Abroad, where we cover a range of topics from the world of TEFL. This podcast has it all, from passport stamps to recruitment, tips for teachers who want to be internet sensations, finding accommodation in far-flung locales, and so much more. Subscribe now so you don't miss any new episodes. Let's be clear, the English language can be difficult. Whether it's on a conversational level, where idioms stalk almost every sentence, or the academic level. So imagine navigating English for both casual chats and textbooks when it's not even your mother tongue. Our next guest, Cecilia Nobre, grew up in Brazil, absolutely fascinated by language. So, she mastered both conversational and academic English to the extent of working in English universities and recently co-authoring a book. She has also taught, of course, in Brazil, England and Turkey, so we knew we'd have plenty to discuss. Here's Cecilia's story. We're here with Cecilia Nobre, who has had an absolutely fascinating career. And Cecilia, how are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you, Johan. How about you?
I can't complain. I can't complain. It's Friday night and it's actually quite sunny in Glasgow. So without much further ado, then we'll launch into your career because there's so much there and there's so much that listeners are going to take away from this. So no place better to start than when you started teaching, which was in Rio de Janeiro. You were 19 years old and it was the third year of your undergrad, if I'm correct, and you're studying in Rio. I'm just wondering, had you always been interested in languages? And what kind of English education did you get at school in Brazil?
Yeah. Uh, yes, you're right. I've always been interested in languages since I was a child. So I started learning English as a child. So I was about 8 to 9. My parents enrolled myself and my sister in a language school. And I've always been fascinated by English. To my parents' joy, because usually children are not very well. Some children are not very keen on languages, but I grew that love for learning English. So that's how I started, really, as a child, and then because of that love that I had developed throughout my childhood, I decided to pursue when I finished my language course. I was 20s, and I decided before that I had decided to pursue my degree in languages, Portuguese, English. So it was because of that love for languages and love for teaching as well. I used to play. I have a younger sister. She's 2 years younger than me. So we used to play, going to school and play. I'm an old school person. So I used to have like a blackboard, and my sister would be my student, and I would use the blackboard to assign homework, etc. So I think that reflected my initial love for English. And then I decided, yes, I wanted to be a teacher. So I've always wanted to be a teacher. Some people have asked me before, have you ever wanted to do something else? And I always say no. I've always wanted to be a teacher. And my education in Brazil, in Rio, in regards to English, was started in a language school. So back in the day, in the 80s, late 80s, English became very, very popular. And so there was a boom in language schools in Brazil, not just in Rio. So I'm from Rio, a huge city in Brazil. And my parents wanted us to learn English, to have better job prospects, etc. So that's how I started. So I studied English from, let's say, 8 9 years old to 20. And before that, I started my undergrad course. So that's how I started. And many children actually start this way. They go to a language school and to learn English or to learn Spanish. And if they like that, they can continue their education in a mainstream school.
And you talk about mainstream education, and I'm just wondering, what's the demand like for English in your experience anyway in Brazil, and particularly in major cities like Rio? And in what ways does it help to learn English beyond kind of the sort of the ways that language learning in general, helps with like long-term memory, with communication, with confidence, all that stuff. But in what ways does English help specifically?
So there is there has been a huge demand for learning English. I would say for about 50 years, 40 years. And if you go to Brazil, there is a language school in every corner in major cities.
Right?
Yeah, it's very, very popular. It doesn't mean it's positive. I don't see that with, with positive eyes, but there are many, many language schools in Brazil, and nowadays bilingual schools as well.
Yeah. How does learning English specifically? How does that help in terms of career prospects and in other ways? How does that sort of speed up a career ambition that you might have?
In Rio, because it's a touristy city, so many people, when if you go to Rio, I feel that you're kind of expected to speak to a certain level, to a basic level because of tourism. And the there are many tourists in Rio. So I would say the first one of the first reasons is that, um, but also in other country in other cities in Brazil. But there are many multinational companies in Brazil as well, investing in Brazil. And um, and I would say I know lots of Brazilians who want to work abroad. They want to live abroad. So I would say that, yeah, there is a huge demand, and that's why, um, nowadays not only English is popular, but also Spanish. So people usually learn both English and Spanish. Actually, English is a given. We kind of expect people to know, although the level is not really high. Um, um, in I would say in South American countries, but yes, so people are expected to speak English to a certain level.
That's really interesting. And had you always been drawn to language? I guess specifically English in your case. Had you always been drawn to language as a route to see more of the world, or early on had you intended to stay in and around Rio for your career? I mean, what were your kind of initial career goals, and how much did language play a part?
That's a very interesting question. Yes, I've always been drawn to languages because, in my when I was a teenager, I had this dream of traveling abroad and teaching English in different countries. So I had this crazy dream. Um, so I remember like dreaming, oh, when I become an adult, I will teach English in Italy, and then the next country, France, and so on. um but I didn't know how to reach that level. And but yes, I would say I I think my initial aspirations were to travel abroad, to meet people, to um, to meet other cultures, and to learn more about the world. My mom always tells me that I've always, when I started learning English, I've always told her that I would move abroad, I would live abroad. So that was one of my aspirations. I never wanted to stay in Rio. I have this, I would say, adventurous nature. So I like going out, I like traveling, I like meeting people. Staying in Rio was never in my in included in one of my dreams, to be honest. So much so that I'm not there anymore. I'm I'm based in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll get to the moving to the UK part, and I always find it so interesting because the majority of people we talk to are kind of, I don't want to say desperate, but they're really keen to get out of the UK or to out of America or out of Canada to go to a country like Brazil and teach, and then you kind of, it's always interesting seeing it the other way around. So, and I kind of staying on that theme. We'll speak about kind of, being a non-native English speaker and all that entails later on. But I wanted to get your take on this early on because, and as we'll cover later on, you're very much involved in the academic side of English language learning, and we'll talk about everything you've achieved. And we'll try to cover everything you've achieved. But do you think that learning English as a non-native speaker actually might have given you an advantage in terms of how well you learn the language? Because there are key foundational lessons that non-native English learners and speakers take for granted. That growing up, I mean, the emphasis on grammar wasn't really there, to be honest. Do you think that learning English as a foreign language, if you like, do you think that gave you an advantage later on when it came to academia in particular?
I think so, because but not just due to the fact that I'm a non-native English speaker, but also because I'm a very curious person, inherently curious. So I'm always hungry for to learn. But yes, I think it gave me the advantage, not advantage, but I think it made me more empathetic towards my students, because I know the hurdles that they have to overcome, right? So it makes me more empathetic, more understanding as well. And because I have studied both Portuguese, I'm not just a Portuguese native speaker. I have also studied Portuguese at university, so I like to compare and to understand what makes a language, let's say, easy to learn for certain speakers and not for others. I've taught Portuguese to foreigners as well, so I could see the other way around. Difficult sounds, for example, difficult phonemes that they struggle with. So I have seen both sides, teaching English as a native speaker and teaching Portuguese as a native speaker. And I think, yes, it has given me this advantage. But because I like learning, I like studying, I like understanding what my student needs. And it's also important to know which language they speak as a first language, because students have different difficulties, different takes on learning English. I know very well, for example, what kind of difficulties Brazilian students have. But when I moved to Turkey, we're going to talk about Turkey, I hope. When I moved to Turkey, I didn't know what kind of difficulties Turkish students had, and that I learned that on the go. So yes, I think it has given me this empathetic mindset.
So now, I mean, I think the listeners have got a really, really good idea of your motivations for teaching English, what your childhood was like in terms of learning languages, your motivations for getting out there and teaching. I was just wondering if you could try to talk us through the first couple of years after you do those first classes as you're studying your undergraduate degree. What kind of happen next for you? When did you decide, right, this is my career now, this is what's going to happen?
Right. Yes. So the first years of my undergrad course, I was very young. I was 18, 19 years old, and at my university then, there was this amazing project called CLAC, which is a community-based course, community-based language school, where undergrad students teach the languages that they are learning. So I used to teach English there. Um, Students learning Russian, they would teach Russian, and so on. So it was an amazing opportunity for me, because I had the support from my professors. I've also received a small grant to teach, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me to do a lot of trial and error when before actually uh, teaching at a language school. So it was more like a internship, let's say, but it was a wonderful, wonderful uh, uh, phase of my journey, because I taught there for 2 years in this project, and I had huge huge classes, 25 students, mixed abilities, and although they were divided into their their levels, of course they were very different. They had different abilities. So it was a great lab. I usually say that it was a great lab for me, to make mistakes, to learn with my students, to understand their needs. It was amazing.
There's so much about your teaching career that I want to get into, so we're just going to take a quick break and then I'll be right back with Cecilia Nobre.
Feeling inspired? Fancy trying something completely new? Well, make your best move yet by signing up for a TEFL course with the most highly accredited provider on the planet. Here at the TEFL org, we offer a range of online and classroom courses that you can study at your own pace. All of our courses include top-of-the-range teaching materials and come with dedicated tutor support from experienced and highly qualified TEFL experts. And what's more, we'll give you money off to do it. Just enter the code PODCAST at checkout to get 50% off any of our internationally recognised TEFL courses. And that includes our best-selling 120-hour Premier Online course. With that code, you'll not only get 50% off, but you'll also get a free lesson plans pack. Within a matter of months, you could be a qualified TEFL teacher, out there exploring the world or working to your own schedule from home as an online English teacher. Just use the code PODCAST at checkout to get started.
And we're back with Cecilia Nobre. Now, a major reason for putting this episode together was your online presence. On your Instagram in particular, there's a clear emphasis on innovation in the classroom, using video, using different teaching methods, kind of things I hadn't really seen before. So your focus very much then is on your personality, trying different things. How long did it take for you to carve out the style of teaching that you have, would you say?
Well, I would say that it reflects my personality, what I do in my life, in my my personal life, things that I like, things that I don't like so much, so I try to ditch. Because I think teaching, and I don't see that limit so much between my personal life and teaching. For example, when I'm just browsing videos and I see something interesting, I immediately think about, okay, can I change that into a lesson? Can I adapt that video into a lesson? So these are things that I like doing in my personal life, but also things that I have encountered in my career, dealing with teachers, watching other teachers teach, things that I learned from my masters, my undergrad, and things that I watch online as well. So I try to pick the best bits of what people are doing and see if that speaks to my own context, to my students and now trainees as well. So I would say it's a mix of everything that entails my life.
Excellent. And throughout your career, from the outside in, it always looks as though you've tried to sort of refine your approach. I've been reading a lot of your blog, which I found really, really interesting. And another thing is that you try and gain as much of an academic grounding in teaching and different teaching techniques as possible. Is that fair to say? You've constantly strived to improve yourself. And what advice would you give to teachers who are thinking along the same lines?
Yeah, spot on. Yes. Because I once wrote a blog post about teaching not being a gift. I don't think teaching is a gift. I think teachers are not born; we are made. So this is my personal opinion. I think which links to, I believe, what you're saying. I try to, when I teach, when I learn something, I try to read and see the rationale and understand if there is data, or if it's just people's opinions. Of course, we are allowed to have our opinions, our thoughts, but I think it's important um, to to understand what's being done, what has been done in research, so we can make informed decisions in our classrooms, teaching the practical actions that we do in class with research as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, how much do you think, teachers should value professional development? Because you've achieved so many different things in your career, but the sense I've always got is like, well, this could be better, or I could do this. I could achieve this thing. How much drive and motivation does that take, and how important is professional development as a teacher?
Yeah, I think it's essential. It has been essential in my career, uh, um, furthering my studies, talking to other teachers, doing courses, attending webinars. But I also understand that professional development, CPD, should not be an extra burden. We are very busy. Teachers are always busy. We have lots of things to plan and marking and stuff. But I believe that the most effective professional development path is the one that is that can be implemented within our daily routine. So it shouldn't be something extra, or it shouldn't take too much of the teacher's resting time, for example, but really trying to include professional development in their timetable. But I think it is essential. It has been very important for me in my career. So I'm always on the look for webinars that speak to my context as well. So webinars, and they're free webinars, or very affordable ones. So webinars, courses, um, interacting with teachers on social media. We learn a lot as well, from Facebook groups and LinkedIn posts. So there are different and more personal ways to approach CPD. It doesn't have to be something very formal. It doesn't have to be, going to a school or a course, but it can be more. It can be more embedded in our teaching. I think it's important, but it should be relevant to teachers' context. So I don't believe in me telling teachers what they should do for their professional development. Oh, you should attend this webinar or do that, because if I don't know their context, if I don't know their background, who am I to say that? What I usually share online and in groups is good practice. This is something I do. This is something I recommend. If it's relevant to you, go and watch this webinar. If it's not, just do something else. So that's my take.
Uh, and I've got to ask, is this you kind of demonstrated early on with the story about how you'd have a blackboard and you were a play teacher as a child. And that kind of drives me to my next question because even at the early stages of your career, it seems as though, to me anyway, there had to have been major inspirations and major drivers in your career, especially early on. Were there any teachers that you really looked up to, or were there any sort of particular goals that you wanted to achieve early in your career, and you had to get, you figured out what the step was to that? How did that kind of come about for you?
Yeah, yes, there has been a few. My first idol, I would say, was my primary school teacher on fourth grade. I loved her. She was very caring. She was very supportive. Um, so, and I remember her writing on the blackboard at that time. I was 10, 11 years old, and I loved her approach. We could see that she was really passionate about, about teaching. So I think my teacher, Tanya, was my first inspiration. And then later on, when I started reading articles, books, um, I have been a fan of Scott Thumbury for obvious reasons, and many others. For example, um, I have a friend in London, Richard Chin. He is an expert on emergent language. And my supervisor as well is someone who I aspire to, is Steve Mann. He's very, not only is he knowledgeable, but I really, really, I get really inspired by people who are passionate about what they do, and I think we can see it shows through, right? And my supervisor, I think he instilled me this love for academia when I started my master's degree a few years ago. And I had this academia bug. I would say I was bitten by it. So yeah, I've had different a few inspirations in my life, and there are many more. There are many more. I don't want to be unjust and forget someone now, but I would say these three people are huge inspirations.
Absolutely. And as well as, people who have inspired you, have there been any particular moments in the classroom that have inspired you? That maybe inspired you in a positive or maybe not negative, but certainly like a development way? You've maybe had a moment where you've thought, oh, I hadn't really quite thought about that, or I need to refine my approach to this specific thing. Like, were there incidents in the classroom that kind of sparked that?
Oh, many, many. Yeah. So when I moved to Turkey, I taught EAP at a university, a private university there. So it was my first time teaching Turkish students, because before that I would only teach Brazilians and a few English students. Um, but it was my first time teaching Turkish, and I've taught elementary Turkish students and intermediate. The elementary ones were my they were my most challenging students, but they were also the most loving students that I've had, um, because I don't speak Turkish. I lived in Turkey for 4 years, and um, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't learn Turkish. So it is very difficult. It is very difficult. So I just relied on English every time, and teaching them was a learning journey for me, because they could not understand exactly what I was trying to explain. So building rapport with them was very, very important, especially with low level students. And they would teach me a lot of things in Turkish, how to say things, because sometimes one student has, a better level of English than others, and they would help. So teaching them was great for me to refine my teaching skills, especially when teaching beginners, because we take things for granted when we are teaching, right? Oh, the students will understand when if I say that or explain that, but actually, will they? Will they have questions that perhaps I could not anticipate, and my students had, like, what is something, explain something or describe something. um, so I had to what I did is I spoke to other teachers who were more familiar with teaching beginners, like real beginners, and I would ask my students to help me with in my teaching. So there was a lot of interactions with my students, and I learned to use more gestures, to use more images, more objects in class. It's something that I don't um, usually do in class, because I like using technology and showing images and using websites. So I had to step back, and I didn't teach them as if I was teaching children. It's not that, because they are university students, but lowering my expectations as well in to how much I can teach, and how much they can learn from me, but also allowing them to teach me stuff as well.
Great, and I just wondered about that opportunity you had in Turkey. How did that opportunity come about? Because you'd been teaching in schools in in Rio predominantly. How did the Turkey opportunity come up? How did you feel about taking it, and what was it like moving over there?
I moved to Turkey in 2018. I had just finished my master's degree here in England, and for because of visa issues, I had to leave. I had only 1 year student visa, so I did my master's, and then I had to leave. So I had the option of coming, going back to Brazil or going somewhere else. And as I've mentioned before, I didn't want to go back to Brazil. I didn't see myself developing as an educator in Brazil. So I thought, okay, where should I go? And in these in my questions, okay, where should I go? And I started pondering, and I spoke to a teacher, a friend of mine, who at the time lived in the UK as well, and he was thinking of moving abroad because he was not very happy with the Brexit and case. So we used to chat a lot, and he suggested, like, oh, Cecilia, he's also a qualified teacher. So he said that because we are qualified, we are experienced. Um, he suggested we could go to Turkey, because I know that in Turkey we can work at universities there with our qualifications and experiences. So it was like that, really. So we traveled together to Turkey with this intention of working in a university, and that's how it started. It was very um, I would say a very brave decision. I had never thought about living in Turkey before that. It was my first time considering living in Turkey, and it was, I have to say, it was very challenging. It was difficult because, as I said, I don't speak the language. I didn't know anything about Turkey when I arrived there. So I learned everything um, on the go as I was there, and going there, although we went together, but we're just friends. He was not my partner or anything, so I was alone basically, and I moved with my pets. So it was hard as a woman as well. I had a few issues with that. I had to learn a lot about the culture and what's recommended, what's not recommended to do. So it was a tough decision, but it was worthwhile because I found a great place to work. It was also my first time teaching EP, so they gave me this opportunity to teach EP, and that opened up a lot of opportunities for me now back in the UK. So it was very important for me, although not an easy path, I would say.
And just before we get to our next break, I just wondered what was it like jumping from teaching in schools like you had done in the past to teaching at universities? What kind of challenges did that bring with it?
It was my first time teaching in universities and teaching in a country where I had never been before. So that added an extra challenge to not just teaching at university. So it was good because luckily I found a great university to work, a private university in Istanbul, and they had a huge English department, EAP department, with more than 100 teachers, and there were a few foreign teachers as well, and they gave me all the support that I needed, not just in terms of the teaching, but also in terms of, finding a place, renting a place, so the relocation as well. So I had this support from the university. But in terms of teaching, it I wouldn't I would say it didn't change much because yeah, I taught EAP. It was, for me, it was not so different from general English that we usually teach in Brazil, because the EAP that students learn in universities in Turkey is different from the EAP here in the UK, the pre-sessional, for example. Here it's more like academic skills, but in Turkey I had to teach the four skills: writing, reading, etc. And so I didn't find that much of a difference, really. But it was just I had to learn how to assess students following the school, the university's procedures and everything. So a few things were new to me. For example, standardization meetings. I had never done that before. So it was interesting, but I think I learned quickly. I learned quickly because I had the support, and because the department, I think, um, uh, was also used to having foreign teachers, so they could offer that support.
Brilliant. Well, we'll be right back with Cecilia Nobre just after this short break.
Are you looking for a weekly guide to what's going on in the TEFL world? Do you want some advice on everything from job interviews to underrated TEFL destinations? Well, the TEFL Work blog has it all. Every single week, we tackle some of the biggest questions in the TEFL industry. Stay up to date with the latest trends in English teaching, find tips to make your next job application your best yet, or get inspired and read about the experiences of TEFL Org graduates teaching all around the world. Whether you're brand new to the industry or you've seen it all, we can guarantee an interesting read each week. To find out more, go to tefl.org/blog. That's tefl.org/blog.
And we're back with Cecilia Nobre. Now, I am fascinated by your experiences in England. So, you taught at universities, you've studied for a PhD, and until recently, you worked as a teacher trainer for the Cambridge Assessment English. How has England treated you as someone who's very much an English language expert? And you know, how easy has it been to find opportunities in England?
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting, because before coming here for the first time years ago, because that's my third time in the UK. But before coming here, I always thought that it would be very hard for me to work and to be valued here. But surprisingly, I don't feel undervalued at all. Um, and I think this is due to also legislations here in the UK, uh, because employers cannot be discriminatory against non-native speakers. So I find I feel very valued here, to be honest. And although in ELT per se, but I don't think this is just about me. It's about all teachers. Um, it's still a bit precarious in terms of salary and everything. But I don't see employers not turning the face at me because for example, I'm a non-native speaker. um, quite the opposite, really. I've always had opportunities. I've worked with the British Council, and with Cambridge assessment as well, to be a moderator in their teaching English course, so teaching online course. So I feel very respected here, but I know that that in other countries in Europe that doesn't happen, unfortunately. But I don't have any complaints, to be honest, about my experience here in the UK. I cannot speak for other people, but my experience has been very positive here.
Oh, I mean that's what hope that's the minimum. Surely, I can't speak for all of Britain
Hmm.
here, but that's the minimum that we'd hope for anyone who came here and had skills and knowledge and was able
Yeah.
to teach. I'd love to hear more about the teacher training aspect of the work that you've done in the UK.
Mhm.
How did you get to that point in your career? And has it been a really rewarding experience?
Yeah, I think this is because I've been teaching for 23 years and I've been a teacher trainer for the past 5 years. And although I love teaching students, regular students, teacher training is really my passion. It's something that I want to pursue from now on. Because I love working with teachers, novice teachers, more experienced teachers. I think they have so much to teach me as well. Um, their the fresh ideas, questions. I think that they're very very interesting. So I would say I felt more competent as a teacher trainer when I finished my master's in 2018. I felt really empowered because I spent 1 year, you know, dedicated to that master's and studying and learning about methodology, second language acquisition. So I felt very empowered, and things started to, doors started to be open for me after that because because I was also a Hornby scholar, which means that um, I have contacts in the British Council, because the British Council is one of the partners with the Hornby Trust. So I could go to conferences, the IATEFL, and I was sponsored by the British Council. So I met lots of people in the UK, teacher trainers. My supervisor also has also introduced me to other experts and trainers in the area. For example, Thomas Farrell. So I would say that yes, it's been a very rewarding journey. I'm now a CELTA trainer, CELTA and Trinity trainer. So I've been delivering uh, trainings in for Cambridge, and yeah, I really love. If I could, I would just train teachers, work with teachers. So this is one of my aspirations now.
I mean, talking of aspirations, I think it'd be almost churlish not to say at this point I mean, from going from wanting to be a teacher, growing up in Brazil to being not just a successful teacher in the UK, but a teacher trainer, no less, like of the some of the leading qualifications out there. It's incredible. It's a fantastic story. And talking of stories, you've actually recently published a book. We've got you on a really good time. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, so I like to say that I co-authored the book. Okay, please. So with Steve
It's your
Mann.
podcast, though, Cecilia. So you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, it's okay. So with Steve Mann and Laura Becker, Steve Mann is my PhD supervisor, and he was my MA supervisor. So Steve actually invited me to co-author this book on video, using video to support teacher reflection, which was part. This is video reflection is one of my research interests. So when I finished my MA, I wrote about video methods in my dissertation, and Steve Mann is one of the experts in the area. So I think this invitation was due to my again to my love for learning and my research interests as well. And I had also spoken to him about my my wish to pursue a PhD. So he knew that I was interested in academia, and he told me that he wanted some fresh ideas to come into the book. So it was a great opportunity for me to co-write this book with him and Laura Becker, who is also a great education. She's based in the U.S. Um, so it was an amazing opportunity. And the book is about the book is about video reflection, how teachers can foster reflection through videoing their lessons. So we talk about peer observation, we talk about self observation through video, and how um, the affordances that video offer to teachers, to teacher development.
Well, that's outstanding. And where can people find your book?
I think it's people can buy it online. Um, I can give you the link. It's by the publisher called Equinox, and Equinox. Yes. So I think it's online. Yeah, they can get the ebook and the hard copy.
I now just kind of you use the word reflection, which is again super foreshadowing, an excellent podcast guesting. But I just we could talk for hours and hours about your career, and I would love to. But I don't want to take up too much of your
I don't
time.
want
But
to bore you.
oh, you wouldn't. But at this point, I think it's important to kind of maybe sort of pass on a bit more of kind of what you've learned to the next generation of teachers, and as a teacher
Yeah.
trainer, I mean that's couldn't be more appropriate. So you've got a different angle to a lot of the podcast guests that we have. So, what would you say to someone who doesn't think that because they're not a native English speaker, that they can't do everything you've done from starting as a teacher to the masters, the doctorate, writing a book, working for assessors and teacher training and moving to Turkey, moving back, all the stuff that you've done. What would you say to someone who's maybe sitting and listening, thinking, oh, "Okay, but I'm not a native speaker. I can't do any of that." What would you say to them?
I would say to them, study. Don't stop studying. So try to up your game, because that's what I did. I could not achieve what I have achieved now with my undergrad course, for example. So that's why for me it was important to do a master's and PhD. But for some people, maybe a PhD is not essential. But I would say a master's, especially for non-native English speakers, is kind of required. So the more you study, the more opportunities you will have. Um, I would say the first is this. Next tip would be, don't let anyone tell you. Don't believe in what people tell you that you cannot achieve your dreams. Um, and I think it's also important to be perseverant, this and resilient. Sadly or not, I don't know if this is good or not good, positive or not, but um, we have we have more challenges than native speakers, of course. So I have to acknowledge that it has not been easy for me. We have to prove ourselves that we can do it. I think, but it's also important to know where you want to get, what your target is, and work your way towards your target. Do not wait for things to come your way. Things have never come my way. I had to go for everything that I wanted. I had to speak to people. I had to Google things and spend time on the internet to find information. So I would say, don't wait for things. Don't wait for a miracle. You have to go and get it. And it's also important to be surrounded by people who support you. This is very important. So be them teachers, trainers, someone in the area who can support you, who can give you some advice, who truly want the best for you. So these people to have this network of people who support you.
So just to finish us off here, what's next for you, and where can people find you if they want to know more of your story?
Well, so I'm doing my PhD. I haven't finished. I'm currently doing my PhD. My career goals is to work in academia. So I want to be a professor in my area in applied linguistics. I also want to do research. I want to work with teachers as well. So ideally, if I can, I would like to work in academia and do teacher training simultaneously if I can. We'll see. And where people can find me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn with Cecilia Griffiths, and I'm very active on Instagram as well, Cecilia Nobre.
Brilliant. Well, I'm certain we're gonna hear your name more and more, especially in the academic side of the TEFL world. But Cecilia, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I'll let you go enjoy your Friday night now. But thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Ewan.
You've been listening to I Taught English Abroad, a podcast series by the TEFL Org. To keep up to date with every episode, subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your streaming platform of choice. And we love feedback, so feel free to leave us a review on any platform you like. For more information about the TEFL Org, or about teaching English as a foreign language in general, head on over to tefl.org. That's tefl.org. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.